Introducing the RFC49 Plus, 1 full inch of vertical cover plate adjustment. We help you expect the unexpected.
So the difference on the old RFCs and new ones is the guessing game on these. Sometimes we get false information, or sometimes you get different types of products on drywall, the non-texture ones or the 5-layer texture. So we have to accommodate the adjustments for these heads.
Great reliable flows, now with 1 inch vertical adjustment. And that is why we're reliable.
Like and subscribe.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast. It seems to be kind of an every couple months thing, but I have Carey Webber on from Reliable, and we are going to talk about a new product that Reliable just released, the RFC49 Plus, the new residential sprinkler that is available from Reliable. Before we get started, let's see what's going on with Carey. Carey, how's it going today?
Pretty good, Chris, man. Always good to talk to you. Happy to see you in your new digs there.
The new studio is up and running. This is the second podcast that I've recorded here. I've released a lot since I've moved, but that was thanks to Reliable's Reliable's assistance in getting me over to Dubai.
Yeah, that's right. We saw you on the socials. And how was that trip, man?
It was unreal. I haven't been able to accurately depict what my thoughts were of Dubai. I've had a lot of people asking me, like, what did you think of the trip to Dubai? And it was an experience like no other experience. Dubai is a beautiful country. The conference was an unbelievable experience, but just to go to an event on the opposite side of the world and see how they're doing number one fire protection, but to also see the engagement that the podcast has.
Oh, that's
that side of the world. It was unreal just to see like the people that far away are still like, oh, hey, like I watch your podcast. I didn't know you were going to be. Why are you here? And my answer was always, I have no idea. I'm just here.
I think I think they're kind of starving for attention. I wouldn't say attention, but information, right? I mean, they are so anxious to learn. And yeah, we see it with our overseas crew, and really they ask some really good questions, and they're really striving to do a good job over there. So yeah, I'm glad we could help you out with that, man.
Yeah, it was awesome. I will be going back next year. 100%. That's just the sheer size. I spent 3 full days navigating that conference, Intersect conference in Dubai, and I still am very confident that I missed a lot of it.
Well, and even I would say our smaller ones here, right? Our largest ones here, but smaller than anything like that. It's amazing. You can walk around that place for 2-3 days and still pick up and learn things at the trade shows here in the States. So I can't even imagine what those things are like.
Yeah, I would say probably NFPA would probably be the largest fire protection conference in North America, and it was probably 4 times the size.
Yeah, I've heard
by just volume.
I've heard it's multiple buildings, and I've heard that like they take the kids out of school and tour them through and show them fire trucks and all kinds of. So it's an event, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I've not had the opportunity, but maybe someday.
I'll put you on my rider next year.
There you go. maybe I'll come along as your tech guy. How's that?
Oh, that sounds great. I need somebody to hold the camera. My tripod's getting a little wonky. You can
that could be misinterpreted in a number of ways.
Carey Webber tripod for the Fire Sprinkler Podcast. That'll be your new thing. I'm pulling you away from Reliable. Back on track, like we always defer. You guys have released a new residential sprinkler, the RFC49 Plus. Tell me a little bit about the new product and what kind of prompted this change in the residential sprinkler.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's go back a little bit in time for me, only because the first time it really became an issue, I remember I was very new with Reliable on the West Coast, traveling with our salesman. We stopped at a little town north of Vancouver, Washington, called Battleground, and we went to see a contractor there. Guy was working out of his garage, nice guy and everything. He was relatively close to a city there in Washington that had implemented a home fire requirement, Camas, Washington. So that's the business he was in. And, I obviously had dealt with residential sprinklers and things like that, but coming over to the manufacturing side, you know, you don't know what you have and what you're missing. So I remember being there very clearly, and the salesman's like, well, you know, hey, what kind of sprinklers are you using? And he goes, oh, we only use this. Well, I can say it now because they're not really in business
That's right.
anymore. But he said we use the Globe Incher, right? That's what he called it. We use the Globe Incher, and I was like, the Globe Incher, you know, what's that? So, you know, he showed it to me, and you know, very common looking flat plate residential concealed sprinkler.
Yep.
But you know, you're thinking, well, why are you using this? Well, I mean, it became pretty obvious. Relatively good price, right? A UL listed sprinkler with a quoted full 1 inch of adjustment with the cover plate. And didn't mean a lot to me at the time. But as I traveled around more, particularly on the West Coast and get down to California, where obviously residential is a huge thing, we just kept hearing this over and over and over. And it was kind of like, you know, you want to get a little bit defensive coming out of the contracting side and say, well, come on, that little bit of extra adjustment can't make all that much difference.
Right.
And sure enough, it did. I mean, it was just something that kept appearing in front of our face. And so we, you know, as I went along in my career at Reliable, ended up here in South Carolina in the director's seat, and have a little closer access to the product development process here at Reliable. You know, we started talking about and hearing from our sales guys, right? Hey, we got to have this. We got to have this.
Right.
We do. We don't. But at some point in the 20 or 30 or 50 products that you're considering at any given time, it works its way to a spot where it can be funded. You know, we can't make and build and improve everything as much as we wish we could. So we have to be pretty specific about it. And we got to the point where we thought, you know what, let's give this a shot. So, you know, we took the 4.9K factor sprinkler. I heard a lot on the West Coast guys would say that's the only one I use, right? I only use 4.9. All my guys know the rule for 16 by 16 spacing. He goes, we keep it very simple. Yep. And so it really is the big seller out there in the marketplace, the 4.9K. So we took a look at that, you know, got with UL and determined what, you know, we kind of knew what the requirements were for residential sprinklers. And, you know, early on you're thinking, oh, we just have to, you know, lengthen the tower arms and lengthen the pins and this and that. And it's really not that simple. I mean,
there's got to be more to it in order to get that 16 by 16. Correct. And the key for the 16 by 16 sprinkler, while we're mentioning that, is the 16 by 16 kind of across the board in residential has a 13 gallon a minute, 7 PSI design. And that's correct. Kind of a open and shut case standard across the board for a residential sprinkler right now.
Yeah, correct. So, I mean, if you were going to draw a baseline somewhere, right, that's kind of where you start, the 7 PSI minimum, which, you know, is true for residential as well as commercial sprinklers. So 7 PSI, the 13 gallons, you kind of start there. But again, it's not just an improvement on the old sprinkler. It was an entirely new sprinkler.
Right.
And so it has to go through the full process. You know, at the same time, we're looking at changes within the industry and within the installation standards with regard to temperature rating.
Right.
We're also hearing at the same time as we need more adjustment that now that the standards allow the use of intermediate sprinklers really anywhere that you can use ordinary, you know, it became very important that we had an intermediate temperature sprinkler option to go with it. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes when you get into those higher temperatures, the flows and pressures will change a little bit just for various reasons, but the goal there was to have the same flows and pressures at the ordinary as you do and the intermediate, and maintain your place in the industry with the flows and pressures, all of which we were able to do with the new 49 plus.
So the other thing that this sprinkler has is kind of something that Reliable has been working on almost across the board with their sprinkler, from what I can tell, is the big one, which seems minor maybe to most people, but is huge when it comes to AHGs doing site reviews. And commissioning would be the color coded caps.
Correct.
So this comes into play, has the wrenchable color coded caps, which I think is just one of those, it's just one of those little ideas that seems minor until you actually go to do it and you realize how much easier it makes everything as far as the installation go.
Yeah, so wrenchable's the key word. And again, it's if you're doing you got guys out there doing hundreds of thousands of sprinklers per year.
Yep.
And if you're shaving, I don't know, 5, 8, 10 seconds or whatever the number is off of an installation, right? So the old one, you pull the plastic cap off, put the wrench on, make it
Yep.
in. Hopefully you didn't drop it off the ladder. Now you're putting it back on. Hopefully you're getting, if you were doing color coding, which we might not have been at the time, you're putting it back on. So again, just a lot of steps involved there. So the ability to grab that sprinkler out of the box, slip the wrench up into the protective cap, make it in, again, like you said, have it color coded for the various temperatures. If people are even still going to continue to do that, we'll see. Because quite honestly, Chris, there's been a lot of innuendos and talk in the committees. Do we even need ordinary temperature sprinklers anymore?
Oh, just completely. They still make a 135 sprinkler.
Sure. Yeah. We still make 135s, and
Yeah.
some of those early ones were really all about activation time and
Sure.
older technology.
Yep.
And now people are kind of looking at that 135 going, oh, that's a little bit sketchy, right? And people are nervous with 155s and 165s even.
Right.
Or the air conditioning goes out or gets shut off during the summer. Houses can heat up, different things like that. So like I said, we see a lot of guys just going, hey, we're going intermediate across the board. So again, if you're not in that case, and people may not be, then you got the red and green colors for that visual cue for an inspector. If he looks up and he looks next to a diffuser, he wants to see the appropriate color up there and make sure that that the installation has gone like it should. So
yeah, because you can get, any inspector can just pull a cap off if he wants to, if he chooses to get on a ladder, pull a cap off and just make sure that you're installing obviously in accordance with standard, which is never a bad thing. To have a lot of people kind of cuss out the inspectors that go the extra mile to pull caps off. But that's, I mean, how confident are you in your work if you're questioning that?
So this is rabbit holes, right? You and I, we're just down the rabbit hole.
All right, let's go. Let's do it.
All right. So NFPA 25, right? The big thing that actually got removed at the technical meeting last year or whenever, right before the last edition, was whether or not, as an industry, we need to inspect behind flat cover plates.
Yes.
Right. So it was going to be in the standards right until the technical meeting, and at the end it got removed, but that discussion is still going on. So kind of to your point, I was thinking when you said, hey, the inspector may go up and pull the cover plate off or pull the cap off and verify, and he might still want to do that, right? There's people do strange things like you and I were talking about here just a little bit ago. If I put the wrong temperature sprinkler near a diffuser, I could essentially just change the caps out, right? And so really it's not to say that sprinkler is exactly what it is supposed to be, because anybody could do anything. It's if we operate under the assumption, like we should, that people are doing things honestly, it's again just a guy can do a quick glance at it and understand what he's got there.
Yeah, you really can't. I mean, you you shouldn't have to, as a whole industry, play to the guys that aren't doing the job properly. And I know a lot of people are well, what if somebody is gluing sprinklers to a ceiling, or what if somebody is doing this? Well, what if 99.9% of the industry is ethical and is doing the job properly, which I think it's got to be 99.9% of the job is doing the due diligence and doing the job properly. I think that 0.1% of the industry that is doing stuff like that, and that's probably a high percentage when you think about how many people are installing sprinklers in North America and around the world. It's got to be less than 0.1% that is installing, because that would be, 100 sprinklers for 100,000 installed. 100 of them are going to be installed incorrectly, right? And that's there's no way it's that many.
I agree.
You're not playing to the weakest contractor out there. You're playing to a level playing field, and that's the same thing with NFPA 25 when they said, we should have to check behind the sprinklers every so often. The standard that you're inspecting from is NFPA 25, which is basing your inspection off of an originally installed properly system.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
That's why it doesn't get into, if we're going to be looking behind concealed plates, how far behind that are engineering reviews and engineering assessments going to be part of the annual inspection?
So am I hearing that you would be in favor of not doing it? Is that
I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary, because I think if that's the route we go in, you're going to be doing engineering assessments every year in a matter of time. Well, what if this guy moves? What if this happens?
So that's interesting. I mean, I don't take a strong position on it, and speaking just from a personal standpoint, as opposed to a member of the committee. My argument is we're going to essentially look at every sprinkler other than flat plate concealed because they're behind a cover plate. And that doesn't seem like a very good reason, when what we're kind of looking for, not to, again, analyze the design and assess the design. It's, is there corrosion that's happening behind there that we should maybe be concerned with? Has someone done some revisions to the building and maybe sprayed some polyurethane expanding foam on top of the cup, and the entire sprinkler is now enclosed on the inside? We've seen pictures of things like this. So
absolutely.
It's interesting to hear both sides of the arguments in the technical committees. What they did do, to their credit, was I believe it was the Hospital Association, or maybe the U.S. government, the GAO or whatever.
Okay,
I can't remember what it is. They're going to do internal inspections on their own and collect data over the next few years. And if it appears that the agreement was made more or less that if it appears that there's a need after that data collection to do it, then we'll revisit it. So again, it was done with some well thought out. It wasn't just like, no, right? In other words, we're not ever going to do it. It's let's take a reasoned approach and spend some time getting some data.
That was kind of my thought process. Like while you were talking, I was thinking it would just kind of fall into that 5-year internal inspection thing. Only you could add it in as a, you check the faceplate, you check all the valves, you check valves, you remove 5 concealed plates.
That was the idea, right? So at that 5-year juncture, you may have additional equipment on site, and there would be obviously time to get everything in cycle, so to speak, right? And so you hit that 5-year mark, and all of a sudden now, if that's the case, it doesn't maybe become that that onerous on the owner. But again, we are where we're at, and
no, that from that standpoint, I get it. That makes sense. When you think about it from that, I could see it both ways. I see the reason to not do it, and I also see the reason to do it. But at the same time, you have to take you're inspecting to the lowest level of the industry, as opposed to, was it installed properly? Yes. Should somebody have reviewed it and signed off on it when it was installed, or renovations were done, or as long as all the other things are being covered and done properly, you are there to inspect the operation of the system, not above. Because like, what do you do if it's obviously if it's a drywall ceiling, you can just peel that back off. But I have seen sprinklers that are held in place by the concealed plate. So that is one of the things that you would kind of want to see, right?
Yeah. Again, you're absolutely right. We have to go in with the assumption that it was done properly to begin with. And as far as, one issue like that in the entire context of like an NFPA 25 revision cycle, look, everybody's not going to get everything they want.
Right.
So at the end of the process, you just have to be satisfied. And I'm always I always feel this way, that the better minds have prevailed as a group.
Right.
As a group,
Yeah.
the document comes out. It's like it's the best it can be right now. And I would also say if people aren't disagree, want to disagree with that, then get involved. Right, get
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
there and get involved. So
That was the big thing, I think, this year at the NFPA, up in Vegas, down in Vegas, over in Vegas. I don't know, wherever it is in Vegas. I think that's going to be one of the talking points again, is getting involved with the industry. But I think the meetings are on the Thursday and I got a jet on the Wednesday. I'm scheduled to go, but I think I'm going to be a Sunday to Wednesday this year, just because of a prior engagement that I have.
Yeah, it's a fascinating process. I just feel super blessed that I've been able to be a part of it since being with Reliable. As a contractor, we've got other stuff we've got to do, right? And it's just sometimes hard to get as engaged as maybe we should be if this is going to be our our careers. So.
Right. So with Reliable, what other things are you doing? Obviously you're involved in like a little bit of product development and stuff like that, but what committees and stuff are you also involved with outside?
Oh goodness. So I am
Get the
on
list
the
out, the scroll.
yeah, no, it's not all that long. I am on the engineering and standards committee, the NFSA engineering and standards committee. We meet twice a year, I believe. I'm on NFPA 11, which is the foam systems.
Yep.
And in case anybody didn't know, they've rolled 16 into 11. There used to be a separate NFPA 16 for, I can't remember what it was called now, but it's rolled into 11. I'm on 15 for water spray systems, 13 installation and discharge. And
those are two separate committees, correct?
There's subcommittees within 13. Yeah.
Both is installation, and then there's also discharge, right? They're two different subcommittees.
Installation, discharge, hanging and bracing, underground or private water mains, and then what they call the correlating committee. So 5 basic committees there. I'm on NFPA 25, as I mentioned, and fairly recently on to NFPA 30 for ignitable liquids.
Yeah. Ignitable liquids?
Ignitable liquids, I think, is the new term.
That's what threw me off a little bit when I was like, flammable liquids, ignitable liquids are changing
it seems like everything we've seen is changing from flammable / or combustible to just simply ignitable. Just trying to kind of clean things up. But yeah, other than that, it's just in the
other than
here.
that.
Well, it's kind of funny, like some of the smaller committees like 11, you don't hear too much about them, although we're setting up a virtual meeting in May to work through the next stage of that process and things like that. So it's kind of fun. I mean, I enjoy it, and gets me out of the office here. So.
And how do they all meet once, twice a year?
It depends on where they're at in the cycle, but it seems like most of the time it's like twice a year, maybe once a year, depending on how big the obviously like 13 is a big process to get that one. There were, I can't remember, hundreds and hundreds of public inputs this year. Like NFPA 11 perhaps might have 40 or 50, if that, and they're not as dynamic as 13, let's just say.
Right. So. Yeah. Back to the RFC49 plus. That was talking about the rabbit holes, eh?
There you go.
When did the RFC49 plus officially launch? Because we've been trying to get this episode. We were supposed to do it, I believe, in January, with the release date being when you guys launched it. Dubai came up, everything else came up, and here we are recording it March 14th.
Yeah, so it's that's kind of interesting. And while we would like to say that we're going to launch a product on a particular date 2 months ahead of time or something like that, it's a guess, right? We're at the mercy of the agencies, and things like that, and suppliers recently, with supply chain issues and things like that. So, no big surprise, but we were going to try to do a pre-recorded
Yep.
version and have it kind of released, like make it all look seamless, like we
Yep.
like to be able to do. But
Seem like we know what we're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, actually, the product just recently went out into the marketplace a week and a half, maybe 2.5 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yep. And, it's like a lot of things that we do here at Reliable. We have had the product ready. It's been approved. We, made the final adjustments to all the manufacturing equipment because we wanted to go out of here perfect as can be. And you also want to have a large enough inventory in all of the locations so
Yeah.
that when people start placing the orders, you don't say, hey, well, yeah, you'll get them in, 4 weeks. So
Right. Yeah.
there's a ramp up. The product, again, has been ready. It's been listed for quite a while at the laboratory. And then it's just a matter of making sure all the pieces are in place so that you can satisfy the market demand when it happens. And with this product, it will happen. There's some where you kind of go, okay, well, let's kind of soft release and see what we get. But
Yeah.
something like this, when it takes hold out there, it'll get going, because we know people love the product. The product's from Reliable. So now we've, like I said, we've checked all the boxes with this particular sprinkler, and we see where we go from there, and then hopefully, maybe roll this into some of the other models, the RFC30, for instance, at some point. But again, what people need to remember about that, it's a brand new sprinkler. Okay, so it's not like we're going to UL saying, hey, we want to revise this little piece here, this little part there, make this longer. It's a brand new sprinkler.
Right.
And so from that standpoint, the development costs can be fairly substantial.
You're starting from the ground up with the listing requirements, right? Which is
correct.
Not a small undertaking.
Not a small undertaking. Time-wise, there's a lot of time involved there. Maybe tipping something off I shouldn't, but we're in the process of I should say evaluating a facility here in South Carolina that would be UL certified.
Oh, nice.
I don't think this is a new concept. Our competitors would probably say, how long, why is it taking you guys so long? But at least
I wasn't going to say that, but I was going to say, I think, I don't know if it's a new idea.
No. So, but let's put it this way. When it's done, it will be the newest one out there.
Absolutely.
No, anyway, so we're looking at doing that, just, to keep those costs down. UL, I think, maybe in terms of resources and just understanding marketplaces has softened a little bit on maybe bringing people down here to witness testing versus having to go up there.
Right.
We'll see how all those things play out. But again, once we've got that kind of in place in the next couple of years, let's say, that development process can probably be done a little more rapidly. But yeah, and then you have to look at it, obviously, like business people do, and that's way out of my, above my pay grade, as they say. But if you look at like the RFC 3.0, what really is the market demand for that sprinkler?
Right.
Is everybody just gonna just basically go to the 4.9? We still make the 3.0, we make a 4.3, and those are the smaller sizes, and then on up into the 5.6, and then all the way up to the 7.6 for the big rooms in the high rise kind of residential market. 0.10 density, right, is why we have those. So again, it's just it's the return on investment that people, those decisions have to be made, and I do what I can to help. That's about it. So
yeah, we talked a little bit before. Do you think that 1-inch adjustment concept can be detrimental to the industry from an installation standpoint?
Oof.
Like this goes back to the argument that people have with flexible drops and stuff like that, is taking work away. Is it taking the skill out of the industry? I always say, if you spinning pipe to the right is the skill in your job, you're looking at this the wrong way, because the sprinkler still has to be installed with the proper spacing and hydraulics and characteristics. It still has to meet its listing. The piping behind it is not your skill. If
Yeah.
that were the case, we would still be doing 8-inch skid 40 like my grandfather did, and everybody would be hunched over at the age of 32.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And, we have a similar product. Or let's say similar service and offering. We may or may not get a chance to talk about today, but the same issue came into play recently. And I look at it as, I kind of look at it like this. We're not going to get into the labor discussion.
Right. Yeah.
That is a topic between you and your field crews, right?
Sure.
If you're a union affiliated, you're going to have those discussions. You're going to have some of the similar discussions, even as a merit shop. Those are entirely up to you. But what we do know is that the owners of these companies, right, and they're the guys that are writing those checks. They want products like these.
Yeah.
Again, part of the hesitancy over the years with investing in something like the 49 plus has been, it can't be that important, right? If you would just take a few more seconds and cut that drop just a little more precisely, and then we tend to simplify it, whereas contractors say, yeah, but what happens when they add some hat channel, or they go from half-inch drywall to 5/8 inch drywall, and now I'm that 1/8 inch is really critical to me. So
Yep.
we just have to hear what's happening in the marketplace and just take that feedback, and again, make those decisions. Do we jump on the product, or do we not? So
Right.
again, I don't like getting into that, because that's almost like telling a contractor how he should be running his business. And we're just not going to be in that discussion.
And that's fair. That's a very political answer to the question. Actually, that's
look at me.
Yeah, that's a very political answer to the question.
Just fall off the turnip truck, dude.
No, that's good. And with the way I always explain it is, if your concern is to be working too fast in this industry, where, like, I don't know about anybody else out there, but right now in my area, the sprinkler industry is swamped.
That's crazy.
The quicker you can get in and out of a job and move on to the next one, the better for everybody, including the fitters. Fitters you're not going to work your way out of a job. Sprinklers are being installed in more and more buildings every day. I've said this 1,000 times. They're being installed in more and more buildings every day. And if you can be the quickest one to get in and get out and move on to the next one, you're going to be more profitable. You're going to be the guy that's doing more sprinkler than your competition. Then what better way to do it than, seconds matter when you times it by 8,000 sprinklers in a building.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's the way to get work, right? Is you train your people to do things better and quicker. Then you are able to lower your bid and hopefully get that work to keep those guys working longer and getting a paycheck. So you got to take kind of a long range look at it. Whereas some guys, we've seen this, right? You mentioned the 8-inch screwed pipe, with a groove coupling a foot away, like we used when you had groove couplings a foot away, right? I remember seeing that. And the first time that a pre-trimmed valve went to a job site.
Yeah.
And the fitters
I was on the tools when that happened. It wasn't that long. It wasn't that long ago.
No, that's relatively new, right?
Yeah.
And things like
10, 12 years. Yeah.
Things like the flex drop now, where, and look at where even flex drops have gone, Chris. I mean, it's like, now we've got flex drops where once the ceiling tile's in or the bracket's in and you need to make even a more finite adjustment, they've got the tools that essentially move it up and down. So everything's gotten so finite. But look, if people wouldn't be buying them, and they wouldn't be buying things like the 49 plus if they weren't increasing their margins and making them more competitive. So again, that's their job to figure that out. And once they figured it out, it's our job to give them the product in their hand to say, here's what you asked for. So again, with the 49 plus, it's like, we look at that one and we go, we don't know what else to give you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, how can I help you make more money?
Can I put it in for you?
Is that, are you offering? Are you offering?
I'm
you looking
not.
for a
No,
job?
I,
No?
no,
Okay.
trust
All right.
me.
Hey, I figured I'd offer, right?
Yeah, I gotcha. I gotcha.
I'm pretty sure it's a pretty slick little job you got there over at Reliable. I wouldn't no, I'm gonna go back and start putting in pipe again.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that. We have kind of a standing joke. I mean, I've probably said it before on the show. I don't remember, but our tech service group of 9 or 10 guys, we're all ex. Well, I wouldn't say ex contractors because that makes it sound like we owned a company, but we are all come from the contracting background.
Right.
And so for us, like I said, it's just fun to get back into something that we can get our hands on, and product development is kind of one of those things. So
do you get guys, we'll wrap it up here quick, but a question just popped into my head. Do you get people that call into the tech support lines and say, well, like how do you know? You've never been out there. You've never been the guy. You're just a guy in the office.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I think most guys a little ways into a discussion can understand kind of where you're at.
Yeah.
The more common, boy, I'm gonna probably offend some people, but I don't know who they are. But
nobody listens to this podcast anyways. You're good.
The more common thing that you get, Chris, is I've been doing this for 50 years, right? That's the thing, is you get that thrown in your face and you kind of are like, well, you know what, a lot of things have changed in 50 years. Maybe you haven't, but so
it's the most dangerous phrase in this industry is that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah. Well,
right?
in any industry, I think in anything, right? It's just, if that's the way you're going to be, then yeah, good luck. Good luck. Anyway.
Awesome. So, Carey, thanks for coming on the Fire Sprinkler podcast, albeit a couple weeks late, but we finally linked up and we were finally able to do it. Thanks for giving me an overview of the RFC49 Plus. And is there anything else that you need to touch on before we wrap it up? I think.
I'd probably be remiss here if I didn't give one of your biggest fans a little shout out. That would be my son Reese. So shout out to Reese out in the Seattle Tacoma area. He's an inspector out there, fire.
Oh yeah,
inspector. We were talking about him. He doesn't want to look behind cover plates. So
I mean, I'm all for the more work, but I'm also for give people the benefit of the doubt that the system's being installed properly. We're not going to beat that horse anymore. Reese, thanks for listening. Tell all your friends. This episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast is brought to you by the Laying It Down for Camp Bucko fundraiser being put on by the Fire Sprinkler Podcast. With local partners Wallace Kent Sprinkler, Troy Life and Fire Safety, Greater Toronto Fire Protection, Lamsar, and Joseph Hullage, with major provider of the fire hoses being brought to you by the Toronto Community Housing, we are well over the 63 kilometers required to break the world record. We're putting off the world record attempt until spring to allow for more donations to come in. www.firesprinklerpodcast.com for more information on how you can donate. Camp Bucko is the burn camp for kids of Ontario. It's open to burn survivors between the ages of 7 and 17. The camp has grown to over 70 children attending the week-long camp in August. There's no fee to attend Camp Bucko, and we'd like to keep it that way. Hoses are $20 a length to sponsor right now. All proceeds going to Camp Bucko. Thanks for your support.
Thanks for having us on, Chris. We appreciate it, and I look forward to doing it again in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Cheers, brother.